I've got an MVR on my training room here. So it's just a 7608. So I've just got 3 cameras on here. So we're going to bring this device across. Okay, so and we've got some other devices on our network too that we'll try and bring across as well, some other cameras and stuff. So as we go through. Also too, Hikcentral, from our website, you just go under support, downloads and software, and that's the current version there, which is 1.7.1. So this is where you download it. If you don't know, there's a full version which has all the packages within that application here. So you get your watchdog or your service manager, you get the client software or the web client and the control client all in one. So the web client is the software that goes onto the server. So the web client is server sided, and the control client is remote software that goes onto a laptop or desktop PC that can access the server. Now this package here has all those in one, so you can put all the software in one if you want to. We'll go through some of this a little bit later as we go through the presentation. You can also just get the professional control client just by itself to put on to a remote PC that will talk to the server. All right. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about all this. We'll go through the training first. And down here, just so you know, there's all the manuals on our site as well, the quick start guides and data sheets where you get information on the hardware requirements for a remote PC. So what sort of graphics card do you need to be able to access the server and be able to display 8 meg cameras on live view? Okay, so we have that information in documentation just for your own benefits that you can get from us. Comparison between free and full is not a bad thing to have, because when you're talking to the guys, they can download the software and try it as a free version. So if they don't activate the license, it's a free version and they can have 8 channels on it. And we'll talk more about this in a minute as well. And we've also got some operational videos that you can view here as well. So first of all, Hikcentral, as you can see, is a VMS platform that can manage all Hikvision's products. Okay, so it's just software that you put into a server, and once you've got on that server, you can manage all those devices. Now, Hikcentral by itself doesn't do any recording, so it's not a recording server. It's just a management server. We use the MVRs and DVRs to do our recording in this example, and the Hikcentral server accesses those MVRs through the control client. So we do the configuration through the web client. We add all the devices into the Hikcentral server and do all the configurations, any events and alarms that you may want to do. Then we do all that in the server side, and we use the control client then to obviously live view and playback. So we can work across all our products. We're not going to talk about all this, but I just want to show you this is what this is. You don't need to worry about the RSM. RSM is just for really large systems. So if you've got more than one Hikcentral server, on a site or across the country, then you need an RSM to manage multiple Hikcentral servers. So that's the software that you install. So when you run the installation package, they're the 3 icons that you get. And the installation is quite simple. Okay, so we have a video. I'm not going to go through installation now because it just takes 15 minutes. It takes up too much time. You can watch a video on it. It's quite simple. You've got the option to install the control client and the web client on that installation. Okay, so if you go to custom, you can select what you want to install. If you just go normal installation, you install all those 3 and you get those 3 icons on your server. So there's your watchdog, which is the service manager. There's your control client, which the end user will be using to access the server. And there's your web client, which sits on the server, and that's the software that you use to do the configuration. So when you run the system, the watchdog sits in the background. So this is Windows 10. You can go down to your little icon here and you can see that the watchdog's running. So if I click it, there's all your systems that are running in the background. Okay, and you can start and stop all this through here. And it shows you the list of ports here as well. Okay, so for example, when we're playing back, we are using port 10,000. All right, and I can change the port, because if I had any issues with the port, that port color would come up as red, and I can just double click it and go in there and change that to another port number. It's also got an auto launch feature down here as well. Okay, so this is on by default, but because this is my laptop, I turn it off. So I don't want this application to launch every time I start at my work PC, but that will be on normally for a server. So because if the server reboots, then you'd want Hikcentral to start back up again. So we won't talk about all these services and stuff. We'll just want to get more into the other features of the live view and playback and stuff. But that services, they all must be running for you to be able to do anything. So first up, we need to go into the web client, okay, to do the configuration. And I've just got a screen shared back to my other screen here. All right, so the first time you launch the web client, if you've just done a fresh install, it's going to ask you to activate the software. Okay, just like an MVR does. So you have to create the username and password. So the username by default will be admin because you're creating an admin account for the first time. So you'll just need to create a password. So just create a password for that account, and then it'll take you to the logon page, which is this one here. So the logon page for the web client is the same for the control client as well. So once you set the server up, you log on to the server with obviously the username and password that you create here now, okay, as the administrator. I can create other user accounts, and we'll talk about that probably a little bit later if you want to. But at this stage, when I do this, we set up a administrator. So we log on, and there's your, I guess, dashboard or homepage within the web client server-side software. All right, so not all those icons will be listed. Depends on what software licenses that you have. It'll dictate on what icons will be on. Okay, because we do training, we've got full access to everything. That's why all the icons are on. But if you don't have the RMS license, then you won't see that remote site management icon. Okay, so some systems will only have very little icons on here, just depending on your license structure that you have. So let's talk about the license. You'll see the license details icon down here. And if you go over to here, you'll see a license list. I'll just expand it out. So this is my license, and you've got to make sure the guys don't lose this. So I think from you guys, they get a PDF that's got the activation code on it. So the installer obviously needs to keep that. Okay, because there may be times when you need to deactivate the license and reactivate it again. So obviously to reactivate the license, then you need that license number to do that. So if you haven't got it, then you're going to have to go through this application process with our factory to get it. All right, and it might take a day to get that back. All right, so you just got to be careful. So make sure the guys have got it. If they've got to deactivate the system now, so if I had to deactivate it, I will just go into here and just take a photo of that license. Okay, so so if I click on it, it also shows me what I've got available within that license. Okay, so this one here, I've got 10 ANPR cameras I can have in there, 8 facial recognition cameras. So it gives me a snapshot of all the products I can add into the system through that license. So license details, same thing. You can see a list of all the devices you can connect to the system. So I can do 10 ANPR cameras. So with ANPR cameras, just be aware that you need to tell Hikcentral that it's an ANPR camera. Okay, so if you bring an MVR across or a normal camera across, that's fine. They're just a normal MVR, a normal camera. But if you do that to an ANPR camera, Hikcentral doesn't know it's an ANPR camera because the the ANPR cameras have got certain functions that is activated once you tell Hikcentral that this is an ANPR camera. All right, so and we'll do this in a minute. And it's the same with the facial cameras and the thermal cameras as well. So I think someone's just asked a question. There's no limit to how many times you can activate and deactivate. Okay, so we'll talk about it in a minute and how to do that process. So when you want to activate and deactivate the license, you can do it in a couple of different ways. Okay, so one is online and one is offline. All right, so if you can see down here, we've got deactivation and we've got mine's already activated. So if I want to do online update, I can do that. If I want to do an activation, I can go online deactivation. So when I click that button now, it will deactivate that license. All right, so which I'm not going to do, but that's what will happen. And then I'll have to obviously then type that license back in to reactivate it. So just doing it online, that's easy, but not all sites have got Hikcentral connected to a network, okay, because some people don't want the Hikcentral server online. All right, so, or some companies, so we can do this offline as well. All right, so do it offline, we need to go to our website, and I'll just bring that up in a minute. And I'll just show you something. So this is our website, and up the top of our website, there's a little icon here. So we need to go across to our global English website. Okay, so you can't do the deactivation and activation from our website anymore. Okay, they've taken the icons off. So you need to go to this icon here and go to Global English. And if you go to support, you'll see down here, Hikvision license activation. So in reading down through here, depending on what version that you have, it will depend on what link you click. So versions 1.5 and above, you need to click this one, and 1.50 and below, then you need to do this one. So if I click on this link here, then activate license offline and deactivate license offline. So if I go to deactivate, so what have I got to do? And I'll just move this aside a bit. I've got to install a file through here. So the system's asking me, it actually tells you what to do. If you read it, it explains what to do. So I put a file onto my USB stick, and I'll show that in a minute, which is a bin file. And I just drag that bin file into this spot here, and then I submit it. And then what it does, the system will then come back with another file. Okay, so it deactivates the license on that file, then gives you another file back, and then you have to re-import that file into the Hikcentral server, okay, to deactivate the server. All right, so you go to here, you go export, so you export a file from the server, you put that file onto, which is a bin file, onto a USB stick, and then import that into that website. That website spits out another file, you put that back onto the USB stick, you come back in here, and then you import that deactivation file and run it. And then that'll deactivate the license. All right, so that's doing it offline. And the same process when you're doing it for activation as well. All right, so and you'll see from that website, you've got activate in offline mode and deactivate. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, the easiest way is to do this via online. So if it's online, you just click the button and it just does it for you. Very simple. So let's look at adding some devices into the system. Anything that we bring into the system, we'll do it physically. Okay, so it's any physical device, I guess hardware, we use the physical icon here. Once we start to do the programming, then we get into logical. Okay, so that makes sense when you think about it that way. So you go into physical, and you'll see there's a list of options down through here. All right, so an NVR is a encoding device, the same as a camera. So anything that stores video, that's like an embedded device, like a camera or an NVR, is an encoding device. You know, if you're doing access control, or if we're doing elevators, or we're doing our video intercoms, then we need to go to these particular icons to see those devices. All right. Smart walls, which is the video walls, down through here. If you want to add a recording server to the system, we do it through here. Okay, so so all these have got their own products that we bring in from the system. Over here, this is like a SAW tool on the bottom here, and it's scanned the network and found that there's 22 devices on the network down through here. So you've seen our SAW tool, which is that one there. Okay, so Hikcentral has got the same thing, which is down here. So this is just a tool that's found all the devices on the network. I can't do any programming until I get them into the software. So they need to be added to our device list, which is up the top here. So this is the NVR that's got on my training bench here, that's got 3 cameras connected to it. So it's an HL NVR. It's already been activated, so you can see how it says it's active. But if this has not been activated, this would then say inactive, and I can just click on an option here to activate that product, and I can just type in a password for that device, and then give it an IP address if I wanted to. So I've already done that, so I can just click on that icon now, and I can just go add to device list. So this is doing it locally. All right, so if I just go back a bit, I'm doing this because all those devices are locally. If I had some devices here in Melbourne, from our Melbourne office, I can't do it from here. I need to go add up here. So anything that's on a WAN or remote needs to be added directly from the icon up here. So we just click on this option up here, and then we just go IP and domain, and then we type in the IP address, which could be like a public static IP address. Like, I'll just make something up. And then that would have an external port number, whatever that's going to be. And then you'll just fill out the details, and then that would add that device off the wide area network into Hikcentral. So I can do that through a IP address, and I can also do that through a domain name, which could be .com, for example. All right, it would also have a port number that you need to know. So when you're adding devices in this method here, then you need to have port forwarding set up in the router, okay, because we're accessing the system remotely. I'll talk about some of these other ones a bit later. So I'm just going to do this locally at the moment, and this is the MVR that's on my bench. So I'm just going to go add device. So think about this scenario. So generally on a site, there will be some MVRs that could be in a rack, and you also can have the Hikes server in a rack as well. So they're going to be local. Okay, so most of the time, that's going to be the situation. All right, so now I'm just going to add this device. That's the IP address. That's the port number I'm using. I don't need to map any external ports. So our MVRs, I'm sure that you guys know that we have that stream encryption key. Okay, so that's that verification code inside the MVR. Let me just bring up the MVR again. So it's important to understand this because if you don't, then you're going to get stuck one day. So to be able to do what I just did, I just typed in that IP address of the MVR. I'm actually using port 8090 in this one, so I better change that to add it into the system. We have an encryption key. Okay, so what the system does, it encrypts the video from the MVR to my laptop or to my browser. Okay, and that encryption key is here. So you'll see it here. So if I type in the wrong encryption key, then I won't be able to stream the video. So I need to know what that encryption key is, okay, to be able to bring that into Hikcentral is what I'm trying to tell you. And that encryption key is under here. So that's my encryption key. All right, so I need to know what that is. Otherwise, Hikcentral won't be able to see the pictures. So just while I'm in here, because I was mucking around with this system yesterday, I changed the port number. I'm just going to change that port number back to default, which is 80. All right, so let's go back to here. So I'm adding this device. So don't forget, I went down through here and I clicked on this icon here and go add to device. And I want to put my my stream encryption key in there. All right, so I'm going to add that in there. So we're just going to be A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's optional. If you don't have that on the MVR, then you don't need to fill this out. Okay, but just be aware of this because I've been caught out a few times trying to help people out when that's been on. So device name, and call it whatever you want, and I'll just call it MVR 170. Username and password. And obviously the time zone, I can apply that to the device now if I wanted to, but I won't do that. I'll just leave it as it is. Now add to channel. So I'm going to bring either all the channels across from the MVR because this is an 8-channel MVR, or I want to specify what channels I want to bring across. So I'm going to specify because obviously you're paying for the licenses. You don't want to use any channels and pay for licenses or pay for channels that I'm not using. So I'm just going to click on and only bring across the channels that I want to use. Okay, so I've got 2 cameras connected to this MVR, or actually I think I got 3, so I'll leave 3 on there, and I'll bring those 3 across. I can create a device name. Okay, so each camera must belong to an area, and that's set up in this icon over here, in the logical view over here, and we'll show you this in a minute. But each camera must belong to an area, so I can create a area by the device name, which is this one here, or I can put it into an existing area. So if I click on existing area, I don't have any areas yet because the system's brand new. Okay, but what I can do is just scroll down and go add new area. So when I do that, my server name is training site. So I actually created a server name when I first launched the web client. When I first set it up, it asked me to create a site name, and I just called it training site. And I'll show you that in a minute, how to do that. So under the training site, which is your root directory, I create an area, and I'll just call this office. The streaming server, we're using the streaming server. That's a part of the Hikcentral server. All right, so let me just show you that. That's the streaming gateway. That can do 200 connections in and 200 connections out. Okay, so that means that if you have a remote connection to the server and that person's viewing 10 cameras, then that's 10 streams. A second user logs on and views another 20 cameras, and then 10 plus 20, there's your 30 streams. Okay, so your limit's 200. We're using the streaming server that comes with Hikcentral. If we get really big systems, sometimes we need to create a separate streaming server. So it's going to have its own server with its own software and IP address. I would then need to select it. Okay, but this time we're just using the inbuilt one that comes with the system. So we go none. So now I'll just go add. So I'm adding all these cameras into the office area. And no streaming server, video storage, yes, encoding device, which is my MVR, and get the recording schedule from the encoding device. Now just go add, and it'll migrate those 3 cameras across. Done that, and we're online. Okay, so available cameras, available alarm IOs as well, and tells you the version and all that sort of stuff. Icon over here to get into the web interface, I can do that, and it'll take me to the logon page of the MVR. So now that's added in. Okay, so there's my training site, and that's where I can change it if I want to. No, sorry, I can't change it there. I've got to change it down in the system in here. That's the site name. So there's the office, which is a part of the training site. If I want to add another area, I can do that. So I can just go here and go plus and go warehouse. And now I've got 2 areas. So each camera can only belong to one area. So I can change and move those cameras around. Okay, so if I want to move this camera here, which is in the office, to the warehouse, I can do that. So 2 cameras in the office and 1 camera in the warehouse. All right, so the system does not bring in the alarm inputs off the MVR or the cameras either. So I have to bring them in manually. So if I want to use a output from the MVR, then I need to go into the output icon over here and go add, and then select the output that I want. So that's the output on one of the cameras, or that's the output on the MVR. So I tick that box and go add, and there it is there. So if you want to name that's more meaningful, just click it, and just that could just be main gate control or something. If you don't do this, then you can't control that output from the MVR from the control client. So you need to bring it in on the server first before you can access it with the control client. Okay, and I can do the same for the inputs. There's no input, so I can add an input as well if I want to. All right, so but I won't, but I can do it. Same for the doors and all sorts of stuff that we may have, but we've just got cameras here. If I go into my camera, I've got different options through here. I can change the camera name and stuff like that. All right, so if I don't want that name, I can just make that and I can go through and change the settings, which I'll show you in a minute, but I'll just change that name. Now I've changed the name on here, but in the actual MVR, the name hasn't changed. All right, so I need to push that name, apply that name to the MVR, okay, because this name's only on the server. The MVR doesn't know I've done any changes, so I need to apply that to the MVR. So if I go push that name up into the MVR, and this is what this is doing here. So now the MVR will be updated, and it'll now show that camera name there. So that's how we do it. If I want to grab the camera name, I can just go get camera name. So I tick that box and go get. Right, so I can push and pull from the MVR through this icon here. So using IE is not mandatory, no. There is a list of browsers I can show you later, but it works on Chrome and stuff like that. I haven't tried Firefox and that, so I'm just using IE because IE is my default browser still. All right, hang on a sec. All right, so now we can control information here. I can get the recording schedule. So just so you know, when you get into the camera, you've got obviously your functions within the camera, and so we can get the recording settings from there. If I go there and click on that icon, I've just grabbed the recording schedules from Hikcentral, and you'll see I can see them there. So if I want to change the recording schedule, I can go through here and go, maybe I want to all day time-based template, and I can view what that is. And or if I want a one that I've made here, so here's a restricted one that I made, and if I view that one, that's a restricted one. So if I want to push that onto the MVR, I just need to save it. Okay, and then that'll push that onto the MVR. So just be mindful of this, because I've been caught out myself doing this on sites, that this will actually push whatever schedule you've got listed here into the recorder. But you've got other settings here that you can do, so I'm not going to cover all these. I just want to start getting into some of the live view and playback functions. So now we've got the cameras in the areas. Now let's go into the control client. So I'm just going to launch that on my laptop here, and I'll bring that across to my second monitor. So here's the control client. The control client needs to talk to the server. So the server could be local, or the server could be in Melbourne or anywhere else in the country. So I need to tell it where it is. So there it is there. So I click on show server address. So this is the address of my laptop, and I'm connecting via port 80. All right, so that's the default port that we use. So if this is in Melbourne, I can have a static IP address, or I can have a domain name I can connect to. I just need to tell the control client where that server is. So now I'll just log on. Obviously, I can select remember password and stuff like that, but I don't do that. So if anything was wrong, it would come over error. Now, I haven't really done any configurations in the server yet. All I've done is added the device and put them into areas, and that's it. Okay, so already I can view those cameras in the monitoring center. All right, and you'll see here, there's my two areas, office and warehouse. And I can just double click it. So Hikcentral has an adaptive feature. So when you double click the camera name, it just adapts the screen to suit that style of camera. So if this was like a panel view camera that had like a 180-degree view, it may use two tiles here. So it would spread that view across two tiles. Okay, if you don't want that and you want to control that view yourself, you've got a little view icon up here, and I can go to there and change my window division through here. So maybe I want quad screen, select that option, and let's put that extra icon there. And just for example, if I wanted to stream this camera twice, I can do that. So once I've got the layout that I want, I don't need to have this stuff down here, because this is just extra information regarding, say, access control or for ANPR cameras. If I don't want that, I can just push that down and have that at a bigger view there. So once I've got the layout that I want, I can just go save. So click on the save icon, and I can do that as a public or private. So that private means when I log on, I can see that view only. But if I go public, then other people can see it as well. if I give them permission to. So let's say I'll call this a test squad under public. And now let's save that view. So how do I find that view? Over on the left-hand side here, I've got my views. So I click on that view icon and it lists the views here. All right, so there's the one I just created, that test squad. So I'm just going to delete this one. So you've got options there as well. You can switch the views. You can play the view, which is just obviously what I'm doing now is playing the view. I can push it to the smart wall or delete it. So you can control those up through here. If you want another layout, just obviously go to your window division and decide what you want. And there's all different types of divisions here. And then you can create the one that you want. So under live view, you've got information on the screen here. Obviously gives you the camera name. You've got your different icons down through here and what you can do. So you've got digital zoom, instant playback, camera status, gives you all the information, including the MVR you're connected to and the firmware that's in the MVR. So all information here. Instant playback, if I just click on that, takes you back. And I'm just playing that back this one camera only. All right, and I can expand that time zone out. If I had motion event set up on here, I would have red lines on here as well. So it will show both. So I can go back and forth. Just by sliding that back and forth. And if I want to clip this, once I found the video, I can just go here and go clip. And that'll go start clipping. So now it's clipped that point there where I started. And I can move this down to somewhere else and then go stop. Or I can just let it play and go stop now. And now that's just stored that clip in a folder on my hard drive. And I can open that folder from the icon up top there. And if I just bring that across, it's taken a snapshot and it's got that clip there, which is MP4. And I can use the VS player to play that back. So where does it store that clip? If you go to the home tab up there and you go to your download center, I've got other options here to talk about. So download center, that clip that I just done is can be stored in here. Okay, so under my local recording. So my downloads is what's been downloading, and done is what's finished. If I want to search on a camera that I did a clip on, so if I go back to my surveillance center and I'll go back to live view, I've got an option here as well. Okay, the option is start recording. So now that camera is recording. Okay, and that stores that in the same location. And if I stop that, it's got that in that same folder there. So if I go to my home tab now and go into the download center and I go local recording, for example, I can go camera. What camera was it? It was the that one there. Now just be careful too. Let me just go back. When you do this, and I want to bring a camera across. I select that camera. See that box that's here. If I do search, it won't search. I've got to click over the white space over here to remove that box because it still thinks I'm doing something. So I've got to click that box first before I can search. So I can search the last 6 hours and it'll show me anything if I've got anything listed here. Not sure what camera I did. So there we go. All right, so all your information that you download is stored in the download center, but you can look at your local pictures and your local recordings directly if you need to. So your local pictures are, if you take a snapshot, like on here, and that will be stored in your local picture folder. You've got options here for your substream and your mainstream. Okay, so you can select what stream you want to. So the cameras can obviously have mainstream and substream coming up from the camera. So some of the newer cameras will have the smoothing option as well. So they've got that smoothing feature. So we can connect and view that smoothing feature. So that's, I guess, very similar to connecting to the substream. So the smoothing feature is going to work out your network resources and then stream the video from that camera so that it's nice and smooth. Okay, and that's what it does. So if I want to see a better picture quality, I don't want to see the substream, I go to the mainstream and it'll sharpen that image, and you would have just seen that sharpen up. So I can control that as well in the settings. So by default, when I launched my surveillance monitoring center here, that it actually selected the substream on all the cameras. All right, and that's a setting in here. So under the system over here, I can go into my settings there, or if I go back to my surveillance center, there's an icon at the top there as well that takes you to the same location. So over here, you'll see, so before I get into here, under general, that my global stream setting is here. Okay, so by default, I've set it to substream. If I want it to be mainstream, I can do that, but I can also set a threshold so that when it gets to quad screen or with 2 cameras on there, then after that, it's going to switch to the substream. Okay, so, but in training, I always do the substream just because of resources sometimes. If I've got alarm on here, I've also got alarm outputs as well. Okay, so there's no alarm output connected to that camera. If I've got alarm output associated to that camera, then I can bring that across. All right, so I've also got smart wall option. If I've got a smart wall. All right, so we're still in live view. So at the top here, we can go from live view to playback. Okay, and whatever you're viewing live, I can play that back as well. All right, so I'm just going to untick that one, and I'm just going to play back that. And that'll take me to the same view in playback. Okay, so, and then when I select the camera down the bottom here, it'll show me the video associated with that camera. And I'll switch to this one, it'll show me the video on this one. So I'm not sure why I don't have video for this one. I'll check that out in a minute. That one's connected to the network. These 2 are connected to the PoE ports in the back. So I need to just double check the settings on this one. So that's how we switch between live view and playback. If I go back to live view, those icons there I can control. Okay, so if you're doing some support work and you're expecting to see an icon there, well, they can be turned off. All right, under your system tab. All right, so you can go into your live view and you can select what icons you want. So if you don't want visual tracking, I just click it and it pushes it down to the bottom here, so no longer will it appear. If I don't want to do any recordings, then same thing. So I just keep doing it, and I don't want digital zoom, tick that, and I'll just go down here and save that. And when you go back to your monitoring, I just need to reconnect to the MVR to re-establish those new icons. So when you make changes in the system, you need to reconnect to this to the MVR, like refresh the streams from the MVR to update that information. All right, so now I've got less icons. All right, so I can do the same for live view, and I can also do the same in playback. Okay, so down through here. So let's look at exporting. I can export from one camera. Okay, so I can just go to instant playback. And I've got an icon up here. So I can play back mainstream or substream. I can take a photo through here. I can do clipping, but also I can export. So if I go to export, it brings up another panel on the side here. So I'm only exporting one camera at this stage, and I'll show you how to export multiple cameras in a minute. So exporting one camera, I can just get that timeline and drag that across. All right, and I can do that via those 2 orange lines there, or I can do that from there, selecting the time range in here. I'm exporting by default as MP4. If I use our VS player, I can create a password, okay, which is going to encrypt that file basically. So they'll need to put that password into the system when they've launched the VS player and launched that video file. It's going to ask them for a password that you create here. I can export it as AVI, but I can also export this as an exe file as well and set a password as well. All right, but you can't do the password for the AVI. All right, so exe file, you put that onto a USB stick, and that'll go straight onto a USB stick for the police. They can just play it back straight off that file. And then you just browse to the location where you want to store that file, which is be a USB location. So you just select that file path. So maximum file size is 2 gig. All right, and then that'll just allow you to then browse to a USB stick. That is doing it for one camera. If I want to do it for multiple cameras, I need to go into Playback. So I click on my Playback option, and then select that icon there. Okay, so whatever cameras you're viewing, when you select that icon there to export, all those cameras will be listed here. All right, so I've now got 3 cameras there. All right, and it's going to allow me to adjust the time. So you don't have to export all those 3 cameras. Maybe you don't want this one here, so you can just untick that one and just export the 2. Same thing. Set a password in if you want to. You don't have to put a password there if you don't want to. You can just export it as an MP4. All right, that's optional. So when you play back this, you'll play back multiple cameras. So you can download the VS Player with it. That's an option as well. So one of the options too when you're streaming through here under the system maintenance is where is it? Is your decoding option. Okay, so continuous decoding. So this is an important feature, okay, because when I flick between here and here, so now I'm on this page here, the cameras aren't streaming to this page here, so it's saving bandwidth. So if I go here and I turn continuous decoding on, and when I go back here, when I do this, so I've made a change in the system settings, I need to refresh this connection. So I just double click on here to establish that new connection. Now, when I flick between the 2 tabs, the pictures are remaining there. So then I've got some options through here. So which is your main video performance that you'll see on the screen here. So if we go into here, you'll see there's your continuous decoding. I've got highlights. So you've seen highlights from the MVR, you know, where you got your motion detection points, like little the green dots that appear when you wave your hand in front of the camera. You get the green dots around your hand. That's your highlights. So those highlights need to be enabled in the camera for you to see them on Hikcentral. Okay, so if you turn them off in the camera, then you won't see them in Hikcentral. You've also got your VCA rules. So the video search. Okay, sure. All right. So all right, yeah, Frank's just asked me, just remind me to talk about some of the other features in searching as well. So before I showed you to play back through here, we can just play back through here. Obviously, we can just go through here and we can adjust the timeline. But what if we wanted to do a search on previous days? Then we need to go into the home tab here, and then we need to go under our search icon, video search icon. And where are we? Oh, here we go, right in front of me. And up here, we select time range. So if we want to just do a normal video search, we're not doing alarm searching or event searching, which is the options down here. Now you can't do alarm searching or event searching unless you've set the alarm up or the event up in the server. So if you wanted to search an line crossing event or intrusion event, then that needs to be set up on the web client, the server side first, before you can search on it on the control client. If you just want to do a normal video search, we just want to do a time range search. Say for today, I select the camera. and I'll just do that today if you want to, but I can do a custom time interval, and I can select that time interval in here. All right, and I can just go down the bottom here and go search, and it's just found that the one segment, okay, because it hasn't been recording for very long. Okay, if I've created tags in the system, so under your monitoring, if you've done a tag, and I think I may have removed that tag icon, so under live view, if I've created a tag, then under my video searching, I can search on tags as well. I can also search on files that may have been locked. Do you want me to show you how to set up a line crossing event or something, like some sort of event? All right, so to do that, we go into the server. So we need to set up the web client. All right, so, and we do that through icon over here. All right, so just click on the icon. And there's different types of events. So we have events and we have alarms. So what's the difference? There are some little differences in some of the settings and what we can do. So alarms, you need to action. So alarms, you can have pop-ups and stuff that pop up. So if I want to do both, I can do both together, and I do that through my events. So I go to an event and go add. And that'll bring up this next box here. And what sort of event do I want? And there's literally like about 20 different styles, like each for the particular product that you have. So I'm going to do an event for a camera. This one's going to be a VCA event, and I've got different sorts of events as well. But generally just be doing a VCA event. So I'm going to do line crossing, and it's going to be for, say, the window camera. I can go into the window camera directly here and set the event up. But I try and tell guys to do this through the MVR first, set it up through the MVR, and then bring it across into Hikcentral. I just find it a better way to doing it, because you test the MVR first, make sure the MVR is working and the camera's working, then bring it across to Hikcentral. And we go into events, and we go into smart events, line crossing, and I've got one set up. So for this to push events through to Hikcentral, we need to have notify surveillance center ticked. All right, so I'm just going to do audible warning as well to make sure that when I do the walk test, I can hear the MVR trigger. Just make sure all this is set up correctly. This is an old camera, just so you know. This is the old style. We don't have the min and max feature on here. I'm just going to walk from B to A. That should trigger, and then the MVR should notify me that it's triggered. So I tested that. That works. I can just get out of this and then bring that event across into Hikcentral. So I just launched my web client. And go into my events and alarms. And just go add. Don't worry about these other ones. It gets a bit more complicated through some of these other options. These other options allow you to use one event to trigger another event. So a line crossing event, it'd be like a precursor to another event. All right, so you set up a line crossing event first to be a precursor to do something else. So which we call like event cascading sort of thing. So we go into events, a camera, and we'll go line crossing detection. And there's that window camera. And ignore recurring events. No, I'll leave that unticked. And I'm just going to go action. And then I'll scroll down through here, and I've got a whole list of different actions that I can do. Okay, so, I'm sorry. So it's all day template. So that sets your template, and I can view what the alarm schedule is. That's the alarm schedule. So it's going to be active 24/7. And trigger recording. Well, the MVR is going to be doing that anyway, so I don't need to trigger this part here. All right, so because the MVR was set up to do that. So if I was using a recording server directly connected to Hikcentral, not using an MVR, then I would need to set this up, trigger recording. All right, so I can create like a tag, a bookmark. I can capture a picture. I can link it to the alarm output if I want to, which I set up before, which is the warehouse, the main gate control. And I'll just go add, so that relay is going to trigger and close the alarm automatically after 5 seconds, which is this gate. So close that relay after 5 seconds, trigger a PDZ, send an email, or trigger some other user-defined event that we can set up. So this is just an event. Once I set this event up, then this allows me to search on that event in the web client. So I can just save this as an event, so I can add an event. But if I want to trigger an alarm to do something, then I'll need to go to trigger alarm as well. So I go add event and trigger alarm. So I'll just go here. It's done that. And when I close that, it'll bring up the alarm interface. Now the alarm interface is slightly different, but does have some similar functions as well. So it's got its own schedule as well. The alarm priority. So that's just different sounds that you hear. Who gets the alarm? If I had more users here, I have different users I can select to get this alarm. And then I've got my options down here. So you can see that some of these are similar, but there are some slight differences. So this one in the alarms, I can relate this to a map, but I don't have map set up in it yet. I can also trigger a pop-up window, which I'll tick. I can push the alarm to a video wall. I can set up things like restrict alarm handling time. So if somebody doesn't respond to the alarm after 2 minutes, that can cascade to a manager via email or push notification to the app. I can trigger an audible warning, which I'll do in a minute. I can also link the inputs and outputs as well. All right, so, but all I want to do for this alarm is trigger the pop-up mainly. So it's done that. So now I've got a event set up, and I've also got an alarm set up. Okay. So if I go into the control client, and let's show you another on my home tab here. I've got a alarm center, so all the alarms will come through to the alarm center, and I'll show you that in a minute. So let's trigger the alarm. And also one more thing is you need to be aware of is in the alarm center, there's an option here to display the video and map, or just display video only. There's an operation icon here as well. That's your audible indication on my laptop, and also that's the pop-up. So they have to be on if you want the pop-ups to come up, which I'll show you. So let's just go and walk across this line here, and then that should enable that pop-up. Okay, so you get that. So you get all the icons on here. So you would have seen that line change color to red, and then that pop-up occurred here, and then you would have heard that sound as well. All right, so that's just a video. I don't have any maps set up. If I had maps, I'd have another icon here to be able to select the map as well. So this being an alarm, the alarms need to be acknowledged. That's why this has popped up. So I need to say, yeah, it was a medium priority, category yes was true, and I can just go test, and then I can acknowledge that. All right, so that's done that. Now let's do that again. I'll show you another way we can do it. So let's start. I'll just close this down here, and there's an icon up here which takes you to the alarm center here. So I go back to here, and if I just click it, it brings me into here. And if I click here, so I've got the alarm name and I've got the alarm priority. I'm not sure why they've done this, but if I click on the name, it loads up this pop-up. Okay, but if I click on the priority icon, it loads it down here. Okay, so it's only loaded the video. That's because up here I've just said just display video only. All right, so if you want the maps, you select the maps, then you need to add a map to the system. All right, so it's the same through here. I need to acknowledge this. All right, so I need to tick that box, and I can batch acknowledge it if I want to, or I can just go to here, click it, and go down here and just do the same thing. So it's true, test 2, whatever, and acknowledge that. And that's gone. I'll take off that list now. So I can also push that alarm to a display wall and stuff like that if you've got a video wall set up. I guess one other thing I just want to quickly mention then, don't forget your user data is under your web client, under the system icon, and then you need to set up your user information. So if we go into, so hang on, where am I? So under security. Okay, so this is where you set up your users. So you configure a role first and then create a user and put that user on that role. But I'll make a video on this one as well, how to set this up if you want to as well. If you want to give the server a WAN address, okay, you need to do this under the system, under your network and under your WAN access. Just so you know, that's done under here, under the web client. And then you need to put the domain name for that web server in here. So it could be a static IP address or domain name. Don't get scared of all those ports here. Most of the time we're not using them. So it's probably the first top 5 here. So 1, 2, 3, 5 ports that you see here that we're going to be using most of the time. Okay, so that's an important port there, which is your playback port as well, which is 10,000. All right, so yeah.